vast majority of this trial was played out on social media. This trial is an example of that gone haywire, gone amok, and the jury is not immune to that.
You think the jury saw it?
How could they not?
Let's be honest, neither one of us want to be in those relationships.
What do Blake Lively and Amber Heard have in common? More than you think. Because behind the glitz and glamour, both women are accused of doing something far more dangerous than just bad PR. They're being called out for using the legal system as a weapon. Not for justice, but to silence criticism. While Amber Heard blamed a smear campaign for the fallout of her defamation trial, Blake Lively's legal team is now being praised for doing the same thing. Issuing subpoenas, targeting creators, digging into the finances and private lives of people who talked about a public case. Let that sink in. This isn't just Hollywood drama, it's a warning shot aimed at anyone who dares to speak up. Because now, sharing your opinion online could get you dragged into court by a celebrity with money, power, and something to hide. In this video, we're going deep. We'll show you how Blake Lively's bizarre legal crusade mirrors Amber Heard's infamous trial strategy. We'll expose the shady tactics, the media manipulation, and how this fight is bigger than two women. It's about your right to speak freely, because when powerful people try to control the narrative by threatening those who speak the truth, that's not accountability, that's censorship. And this time, it's personal. Blake's fall from grace. Blake Lively wasn't supposed to be the villain. She was the golden girl of Hollywood. Funny, polished, relatable. The kind of star who could walk a red carpet and crack a joke that instantly goes viral. So when she signed on to star in It Ends With Us, fans were excited. The novel had an enormous following, and the story, centered on domestic violence and trauma, was deeply personal to many readers. But the moment the film's marketing campaign began, something felt off. Instead of treating the material with the gravity it deserved, Blake's team leaned into aesthetics. Pastel colors, cutesy florals, quirky outfits, and then came the now infamous promo, Blake smiling into the camera, urging viewers to grab your florals and your friends, and come watch a film about abuse. The internet did a double take. Wait, what? That wasn't just tone deaf, it was insulting. The backlash wasn't just a few angry tweets. Survivors, therapists, fans, people who saw themselves in the original story started speaking out. The marketing made them feel like their pain had been reduced to a Pinterest board. And Blake? She didn't flinch, she doubled down. At the film's after-party, she served drinks named after characters from the movie, including the man who violently assaulted her character. That's not satire, that's not clever, that's horrifying. But the most jarring part? Blake didn't just act in the film, she co-produced it. She approved the branding, she shaped the campaign. This wasn't a studio mishap, this was her vision. And when the internet reacted, organically and with real criticism, it was clear this wasn't a smear job. This was accountability. Fans weren't inventing drama, they were watching it unfold in real time. They saw the contradictions, they saw the dissonance, and they said, enough. But instead of listening, Blake pivoted. Not toward reflection, not toward apology, but toward retaliation. And that's where things stopped being awkward and started getting dangerous. Legal overreach and subpoena scandal. When the backlash reached a fever pitch, most celebrities would have called a crisis PR firm. Blake Lively called her lawyers. But instead of clarifying her message or addressing the controversy, she went full scorched earth. Her legal team began issuing subpoenas, not to major media outlets or corporate entities, but to small creators, independent journalists, even stay-at-home moms who dared to talk about the controversy online. Blake's team wanted everything: bank records, private DMs, social media data, simply because these people covered a lawsuit that was already public. And here's the kicker. The case didn't even have named defendants at the time. That's right. No formal accusations, no clear targets, just a fishing expedition using federal courts to silence criticism. The creators weren't being sued, they were being intimidated. One of them, Katie, an independent journalist, got hit with a subpoena for simply reading court documents aloud. She wasn't part of any smear campaign, she wasn't coordinating anything. She was doing her job, reporting on a high-profile case with public filings. But Blake's team treated her like a threat. Why? Because her videos were gaining traction, because she was saying what everyone else was thinking, because the truth was louder than the spin. And Katie wasn't the only one. Dozens of creators, some with tiny followings, some with no legal help, were suddenly faced with legal threats they couldn't afford to fight. many of them survivors of domestic violence themselves, re-traumatized by a legal system now weaponized against them. This wasn't about protecting Blake's reputation, it was about control. It was about fear. And it was about sending a very clear message. Talk about me, and I will come for you. Subpoenas became silencers. Criticism became a liability. And suddenly, the same tactics used by powerful corporations to bury whistleblowers were being used by a Hollywood A-lister against TikTokers and YouTubers. But what made the situation even darker was who decided to cheer her on. And that's when Amber Heard's former lawyer entered the chat. Amber Heard's attorney praises Blake. Just when things seemed like they couldn't get more surreal, someone stepped out of the shadows, and it wasn't just anyone, it was Elaine Bredoff, the very same attorney who represented Amber Heard in her disastrous defamation trial against Johnny Depp. Yes, the woman who once claimed that Amber's downfall was all thanks to a coordinated smear campaign online is now publicly praising Blake Lively's legal team for launching subpoenas against everyday people. In a Variety article, Elaine said, "They basically annihilated her. I think it's great Blake Lively's legal team is trying to get in front of it. How else do you fight this? Fight what? Criticism? Public documents? Creators reporting on open court cases?" This wasn't just tone deaf, it was dangerous. Because if Elaine's words sound familiar, it's because they are. She ran the same playbook for Amber Heard. Back then, she blamed bots, trolls, and misogynists for the public backlash Amber received. Now she's applauding Blake for preemptively targeting people who dared to speak. To Katie and many others, this wasn't just insulting, it was terrifying. Because when a powerful celebrity lawyer starts clapping for legal harassment, you know something's deeply broken. The Amber Heard playbook, copy-paste strategy. If any of this sounds familiar, it should, because we've seen this exact same game plan before, and it didn't end well. Amber Heard's legal strategy during her trial was a PR disaster dressed up in court briefs. Instead of engaging with real criticism, her team pointed fingers at social media, at troll farms, at conspiracy theories. They claimed everything was fake. Every meme, every reaction, every piece of public opinion was just manufactured hate. But millions of people watched the trial live. They saw Amber contradict herself under oath. They watched her testimony fall apart on cross-examination. The public didn't believe her not because they were told not to, but because what they saw didn't add up. And now Blake is doing the same thing. Different case, same excuses. Rather than reflect on the backlash, she's claiming it's all some unfair vendetta. Rather than acknowledge the marketing missteps or public frustration, her team is making creators the enemy. And with Elaine Bredoff now in the mix, the similarities aren't just eerie, they're undeniable. It's the same tired narrative. If the public turns on you, blame the public. Creators in the crosshairs. For the creators caught in Blake's crosshairs, this isn't just a headline, it's a personal crisis. Katie, the journalist who covered the case, isn't a millionaire influencer. She's a survivor of domestic violence, a mom, someone who's been paying out of pocket just to access court records. And now, she's being legally targeted for simply doing her job. She's not alone. One creator from Kansas, another young mom, couldn't even afford legal counsel to respond to the subpoena she received. Her only crime? Sharing commentary on a public lawsuit involving Blake Lively. Blake's team isn't going after people with corporate lawyers. They're going after the vulnerable, the under-resourced, the creators who can't afford to fight back. And while the media praises Blake for being proactive, most of these creators are drowning in fear, uncertainty, and legal costs they never asked for. Some have already shut down their platforms. Others are staying silent, terrified they'll be next. This isn't justice. This is intimidation, weaponizing victimhood, turning the tables. Here's where the story gets twisted. Blake Lively and her legal team aren't just defending her reputation, they're reframing her as the victim, just like Amber Heard did. And just like Amber, Blake is flipping the script to paint herself as the one being harassed. But let's get one thing straight. There's a big difference between harassment and criticism. Harassment is threats, doxing, abuse. Criticism is people reacting to your actions, choices, and public behavior. Blake Lively chose to create a film about trauma. She chose to co-produce it. She chose the branding. She chose to speak on it. And when people pushed back on those choices, she responded not with humility, but with subpoenas. And now she's pointing fingers at creators, as if they manufactured the outrage. As if it wasn't her PR team that rolled out tone-deaf content. As if it wasn't her alcohol brand being sold alongside a story about abuse. You can't light the match and then sue the people who saw the fire. The bigger picture. Why this should scare you. This isn't just about Blake Lively, or Amber Heard, or a single movie. This is about a disturbing trend. Powerful people using their money and lawyers to bully critics into silence. If it works, it sets a terrifying precedent that anytime you speak about a celebrity, an interview, a film, a legal filing, you could be punished for it. Not by YouTube strikes, not by trolls, but by the United States federal court system. It turns public discourse into a liability. It tells everyday creators, if you criticize the wrong person, you'll be treated like a criminal. And that should scare everyone, because the moment free speech becomes a legal risk, the internet is no longer a platform for ideas. It becomes a minefield. And that's exactly how the powerful want it. A line in the sand Blake Lively isn't the victim of a smear campaign. She's the architect of a legal overreach that's threatening creators, survivors, and journalists alike. And Amber Heard's former attorney cheering from the sidelines only proves how deep this rabbit hole goes. What we're witnessing is the slow erosion of accountability, where criticism becomes defamation, commentary becomes a lawsuit, and creators are silenced by fear. This isn't justice. This isn't feminism. This is censorship dressed as self-defense. And it stops when we stop letting the rich and famous control the conversation. So, if you believe in free speech, if you believe creators have the right to talk about public cases, if you believe that criticism is not a crime, then speak up. Share this. Comment. Let them know we see through the playbook. Because when silence is forced, truth becomes resistance.